It is Wednesday, the last day of January, and we've got former Wolverine Jim Scarccelli with us. Scar, great month for Michigan and a lot of different things going on. We're ready to talk about them. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fired up, man. I watched a little Senior Bowl practice. You know, we can't get enough football, man. You had Harrell out there, McGregor, the big tight end Barner, and then Roman was out there looking good. So a lot of Wolverines. And normally the Wolverines don't put a bunch of stickers on their helmet to screw up the winged headgear like a lot of these other guys. You know, when they play in those games, you see all them crazy stickers. But they're going to do well, and I was fired up to see that.
Yeah, it reminds me of I don't even know if they still play them. Some of the one with the real stickers. It wasn't the Reese's. It was like the Shrine game, wasn't it, or something like that? Was that the one?
Yeah, well, senior. I thought it was a Senior Bowl.
It could have been. No, there's
in Alabama. That's supposed to be like the best one to you know the coaches are there more, I guess, scouts more than any of the other ones. But anyway, it was fired up to see a lot. That's just another one of many signs of a good program where you got a lot of guys invited to those games.
It's just a reminder to me, Scar. It was one of the times that I realized that my dad was a little bit too into gambling as one of those like East-West Shrine games, because it's like right after the Super Bowl, and he was betting a big amount of money on it. And I said, these guys are just messing around. He's like, why are you betting this game? Because damn it, I like betting. That's what he said. And I'm like, well, okay, we're all into the East-West Shrine game. Let's go. So, that's just an aside, for me. Well, Scar, today, it's pretty straightforward. There is a lot of things going on with Michigan. A lot of it has to do with staffing and recruiting, and probably another 5 to 6 things that you could point that the football office is into. Of course, the former Michigan head coach, there's some news with the amount of money that he's getting paid out in L.A., but we'll start with the current football coach, and that is Sherrone Moore, and he has to put his staff together, and right now, not 100% sure who they all are going to be. We do know that Grant Newsome, at 26 years old, he was elevated from tight end coach to offensive line coach. How about we start there? Newsome has been a high riser. We know that when he was a good player when he played, then he got hurt. Graduate assistant for 2 years, 2 years as a tight ends coach. And now here he is as offensive line coach, young. But, man, every time Harbaugh talked about Grant Newsome, man, he made it seem like he was a shooting star. And so no surprise that he is on his way up.
Yeah, and he was a great player, and Jim loved him. And Sherrone, Moore obviously feels the same way. So, looking at it, it looks like it's a great decision. And the guy, you got to have guys that can coach and recruit, and then you need 2 guys. You need your offensive guy and your defensive guy that can scheme and outsmart the enemy. Okay, so Grant is going to be taking this offensive line and coaching them up and maintaining. And it appears like it's a good move. He's looked now. We read where he's looked at Kevin Koger. That was a guy I think Brady recruited, maybe Rich Rod recruited. And that could, looking at him as a potential. So they need a tight end coach is really all they need then on offense. And no, it's a positive thing, and I'm happy and excited about that decision. So that's one decision that looks good. But if you want to stay with the offense, though, Denny, Michael Hart now, apparently we don't know what he's going to do. You read some things. Is he? There's been hints that Moore likes Kirk Campbell as the offensive coordinator. And is that one of the reasons? I'm just speculating that Michael Hart might be upset. I don't know. He's been a running back coach his whole career. He's never really had the position of an offensive coordinator, Michael Hart. So maybe he's upset that didn't happen, or he's been told it's not going to happen. But for whatever reason, there's some doubt as to his enthusiasm to come back and coach the Wolverines running backs.
Yeah, I think you got to wait and see on that. And it might be exactly what you're talking about, but then, Mike Hart can go out and back channel and see if there's any other programs that are interested in hiring him at you don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face if you're Mike Hart, and leave Michigan in the kind of spot. I mean, he's done a good job. He's certainly beloved by the fan base, but some of the other stuff that could be going on with Mike Hart are things that are like, the personal reasons and things like that are things that you don't speculate about. Now, I know people on podcasts do, and they certainly do sometimes on the internet, but you kind of just have to hang in there, I think, a little bit when it's coming down to Mike Hart.
Yeah. So, yeah, just trying to figure it out. Why would you be looking to go? I don't know, but
I just wonder this, Scar, and there's two ways, like Kirk Campbell, Sherrone Moore, the offensive staff. When you're during the football season, like the offensive, room, Sherrone Moore will be familiar with Kirk Campbell when he was a GA, and then obviously last year, quarterbacks coach, and then he, with working with the offense, so he'll have an idea on just how bright and what kind of coach that he has in Kirk Campbell. On the other side of the ball, right now. You've said it from the first day that you were on here. You were all about this defense, this 3-4. You called Mike Macdonald the most important piece heading into 2021. I'm paraphrasing the stuff that you said, Scar. And then you said the same thing with Jesse Minter, and then you talked about Jesse Minter being a big loss. Mike Macdonald is expected to be named as the Seahawks' next head coach if it's not official right now. Adam Schefter in the last few minutes said that that's what he's expecting. And Mike Macdonald will be the youngest coach in the NFL. Now, what this says to me, Scar, is that, you've got, when you see the young hotshots, Sean McVay, comes to mind, and, the beautiful mind and that people talk about with McVay and what kind of coach he is. You're going to Macdonald, who went to Michigan and brought this defense in, and then went to the Ravens, and then Minter went right in there. Now Minter is going to be the defensive coordinator for the Chargers. This is a pretty big deal. This is all of football to me, looking at Michigan's defensive scheme and looking at the last two coordinators for the Michigan defense and saying, these are the best guys in all of football, not in college football, but in pro football, to go out there and the Seahawks to tab a 36-year-old Mike Macdonald to do this, Scar.
Denny, you got two philosophies. A lot of these guys like that. They like the Shanahan tree. You take the offensive guy, the sharp offensive guy. The guy at Miami is a Shanahan guy. The Green Bay guy is a Shanahan. So, or you take the guy that knows how to stop them, or you take a defensive coach like Duke did with the great hire of Elko. So, you got two ways you can go as an owner or an AD in college. You take the sharp, smart offensive guy that thinks he's got all the answers, or you take the defensive guy. Jim Harbaugh hiring Mike Macdonald saved his whole legacy, saved him. He would have been gone. If he didn't have the courage to fire Don Brown, he's gone. I mean, the guy gave up 70 to the Bucky, whatever. So that was the most important decision. So this is why I always get back to, I don't give a darn about how a guy sounds in the press conference. If he's telling jokes, is the head coach, or if he's has a command presence. I want a guy that makes smart decisions. And that was this decision that Sherrone Moore makes about his defensive coordinator. It will be the most important decision he makes, in my opinion. He's got to get that defensive coordinator right. Now, why I said that about Jim with his because Jim's offense has evolved. He had it right where he wants it. I think our offense is exactly where it needs to be. Sherrone Moore, the one thing I believe about Sherrone Moore, and it's hard to predict what a guy's going to do as a head coach. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't think Sherrone Moore is going to I think he believes in everything we do offensively, and I think he believes, and he sat down with, hopefully it's Klink or Elston, and he believes in everything we're doing on defense. You just won the national championship. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Danny, let me just finish up and I'll let you go, because I've seen this 100 times in high school coaches. You got a guy who's successful. You got a program that's successful. And then another guy replaces the guy that built it up to being successful. What happens often is the new guy wants to put his stamp on the program. So he changes things. I want it to be me. I want to do this because it's me. It's boring to do the same things the other guy did to win. But I think Sherrone Moore doesn't care about any of that stuff. He's going to say, look, we got a blueprint. We're going to do it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're going to continue to bring great players in, coach the hell out of them, and keep this machine rolling with the same structure, offense, defense, special teams.
Yeah, well, from where I sit, it seemed to be silly if they would mess with what's going on with the defense, considering that the pros, think this is the best defense, or at least the Seahawks do. I mean, and obviously with McDonald and Minner. So keeping that going would be smart. And with Sherrone Moore, not just being a former offensive lineman and offensive line coach, but when you get in there so far, if there's one credo from Sherrone Moore, it's smash. That doesn't sound like let's throw the ball all over the yard. Let's start throwing the ball down the field. Let's pass more. This sounds like what Michigan has been doing. This smash sounds like a continuation of the same thing. Whatever you want to call that, superficial. That's kind of Sherrone Moore. And the way
I think the Penn State game, and listen, he's showed in those 3 games. Obviously the coaches had a game plan, looking at film. How are we going to attack? Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State. They had a pretty good idea, but obviously he had the final say in the calls. But obviously that was really good for me to see what he did against Penn State. I like that. He doesn't care about what he got to do to win a game. If we got to run it 27 times, 30, whatever the hell we did, and now 32. We go whatever. Now we go against the Buckeyes, and we got to air it out to beat them. We do. But listen, he's got to be the smartest guy. He's got to be a cutthroat, deceptive. I want the guy that when I'm facing the guy across from me, I want them to fear Sherrone Moore. That he's going to be a deceptive offense. He's a winner. We're going to play with great. Here's the things I'm going to be looking for, Denny. Here's what I want to be looking for. Okay, I want to see great technique. When I'm not making any kind of predictions until I see the spring game and I see us playing, I want to see great technique like we've been doing, offensively, defensively, paddle, all the little things that I could tell right away when Jim got the job. There was a change in some of the techniques. I want to see intensity, right? We want to see that we're sound. No penalties is a huge sign of Jim Harbaugh football teams. And we want to play smart. We want to adjust and do all these. Don't beat ourselves. Those are the things that, I think Jim has done a great job with. And I, really want to continue those kind of things.
Yeah, play to your strengths. Like when you're talking about putting, your imprint and everything else, certainly when he's going through the coaches, they're not all going to be Harbaugh guys. And, so he can bring his guys in there, and then how he attacks all of the other things. There's so many things. Even if Harbaugh was here, they still had to go after the transfer portal and how they're relaying the name, image, and likeness to the players to get talent in here with recruiting. I mean, all of that was front and center, even if Harbaugh was still here. Are they getting a quarterback in here trying with the transfer portal before spring? Are they going to go with the guys that they have and then after spring? Remember, they pushed spring back. So I don't have all the dates. That to me is an interesting thing, Scar, because the quarterback position, you could say, yeah, well, you can go through all the 5 guys that they have. What are we talking about? Tuttle, we're not 100% sure. But then the 2 juniors, Denegal and Orgy. Of course, you had Davis Warren in there, and then the new kid, right? Jaden Davis. And of those 5, there's a few walk-ons and things like that, as well that you could consider. But do they go with those 5, or are they going to, because other QBs are going to have gone through their spring practices and maybe they'll put themselves in the portal? Will Michigan identify? Will they have a list of 10 guys saying, hey, if any of these 10 guys, or whatever, if these guys come free, are they going to try to get them into Michigan and compete for the starting job in the spring? What are your thoughts there?
I think I said it about a month ago, Denny. You asked me, who's our starting quarterback, and I said he's not in our roster right now. I still believe that.
Yeah,
I believe you're going to see a big time name that was waiting on Michigan. I think there's some kids out there that are ready to come to Michigan. But that's what I believe. I think we're going to get a good kid. And I think we've got some good players on there. What bothers me, Denny, about our quarterback situation is that we didn't play. Listen, I always tried to. You knew who the hell my quarterback was going to be the following year. You know what I mean? Because I played the kid, and we played JJ when he was a freshman. You knew he was the guy. He's the backup guy. I wished we would have said, look, so it's going to be Denegal or it's going to be Orgy, and played him more than what we did. So, it doesn't prepare the kid, but I do believe we're going to get a quarterback, and we just don't know who it is right now. But maybe that's another reason to push things back, to get started in the spring.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's more that goes into it than just getting the guy ready for next year. JJ's numbers were so slanted because he didn't throw the ball already because of the way Michigan ran the ball. They were already playing guys. I mean, a lot of those games you go through and he wasn't in there in the fourth quarter. You wanted to dial it back even more. JJ might have thrown, 8-9 passes a game and, putting those other guys in there because those other guys did play if you go through in some of those other games. But, I think that has a lot to do with, recruiting the top QBs. But their top QBs they want to play. They're looking at, JJ McCarthy was there front and center. They're like, how much is he throwing the ball? How much is he playing? What kind of numbers is he putting up? I think it'll help Michigan. They see McCarthy go in the first round. I think that's going to help.
Yeah. Danny, let me say this. I'm going to tell you my thoughts about where I think this program is. Our defense is going to be every bit as good as it's been the last 3 years, period. Okay. We had the great Hutch and Ojabo, and everybody was worried. And what do? We get Michael Moore, and we replace them. No problem. We've got 2 great edge players. Our linebackers are going to be sound. We've got 3 studs who played a ton of football with Mason Graham and Kenny Grant. Josiah Stewart and Moore are going to be – our front 7 will be solid, tough, good as it's been. We got our secondary back. So our defense, I don't want to hear any excuses from anybody talking about our defense. It's every bit as good as it's been. And I believe our offense, I want to see a tight end that can block because I think Hinton is going to be good. Gentry was a highly recruited kid. I watched the kid in practice. I think he's the guy who's going to be the other tackle. And we got the guard from Northwestern, and there's some good-looking other options of guys we already recruited. I'm fired up about our line, and our obviously we know Loveland can play. I just want a tight end that can block. Maybe they feel Klein kid. I love our running backs. We got Donovan back, and it's just the quarterback position. And I like our receivers that are back. So, Danny, I'm fired up. I think that this team has great players. I think this, Denny. I think Sherrone Moore is getting the football team. When you get a job is important. What I mean by that is, I can go real quick. Bo got the job. Ohio State was number 1 in the country. Not a great time to get it, but he beat them, got it going. Gary Moeller got the job at probably the best time of anybody. And I would compare Sherrone Moore getting it to the same time Gary Moeller got it, replacing a program that was sound and solid and developed and momentum. He's got momentum now. That matters in recruiting. He's got great players. He's got momentum. He's got a lot of the big pieces of the staff. So he's getting it at a great time because we've got momentum. the guys that had the program at the worst time was Rich Rod. Tressel had it going. Brady after Rich Rod. Tressel had it going. Jim got the program at a terrible time. Ohio State was up and running, national championships. Michigan State had never been so good. So Sherrone Moore is getting it when Michigan State is bad, new coach. Ohio State is not bad. They've got great recruits, but Sherrone Moore is getting this program with great players. And if he gets the right coordinator on defense, we've got momentum. So anyway, I just wanted to air that out, that I think he's getting it at a great time.
People are airing out a lot of different rumors and thoughts on the feedback. A lot of talk about Ben Herbert, the strength and conditioning coach, bolting to LA with Jim Harbaugh. Scar, is there any way, should Michigan have done everything they could? Did they do everything they could? Was there any way to keep Ben Herbert? Not 100% sure on that. There are people talking about some 10-year guaranteed deal, giving him 300% more than he was making. So there are a lot of different things there. I have my own opinion on this. You want me to share it, or you want to go
ahead? Go ahead. I'll hear you out.
Well, Jim Harbaugh looks at Ben Herbert like Biff Poggi. He loves that guy. And I know all of the Michigan players do, and I know Michigan does too. He may have been the most valuable coach or trainer that, was right there with McDonald and Minter over the last couple of years. He's worth his weight in gold. That's why Harbaugh was bringing him. So I don't think it's kind of like Harbaugh going to the pros. I don't think there was any amount of money that was going to keep Ben Herbert at Michigan. He wanted to go with Jim Harbaugh because that's his guy. So that's how I thought it played out. What about you?
Yeah, Danny, there's a lot. We can all relate to this in whatever line of work we're in. There's a lot. I guarantee you there was a lot of things going on with that decision for Ben Herbert. Okay, he's been a strength coach for 20 years or so. Okay, guys like a different challenge. That could be one thing. Maybe he's going to have a role that's going to be maybe not just strength and conditioning. I don't know. But it could be the new challenge. It could be the great relationship with Jim Harbaugh, and you can't underestimate that. And Denny, it could be some of the things. And when I get into Jim, I'll get into some of the things that was, I think, a pull to get him to the NFL, and not so much a pull to bring him, to keep him at Michigan, but in some cases a push. And that's when I get into some of the things with Chris Partridge and maybe the way Jim's contract was handled, where they offer him a contract when he's getting on the plane. Those are things, and those are reasons people leave sometimes, Denny, when you're dealing with people you may not have a great deal of faith in. And it's not a knock at Sherrone Moore, okay? But it's some of the things that, you look at how other guys are being treated, and you say, you know what? Maybe I'm going to leave for a lot of reasons. It's the pull there, and you know what? It's the push to get out. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, you can boil it down to he just wanted to go, or you can say, there was more than just a look to going to the NFL and, winning something there. I look at it like this. I believe what you're saying there. I think that he knew that his legend was secure in Ann Arbor. And when that happens, why not? Go take a look. And there's a lot of people making a lot of arguments for him staying around. I know that I told you when everybody was all fired up, and I didn't want to rain on anybody's parade, that's for sure, and telling everybody that McCarthy and Harbaugh was going to go. But I thought it was pretty likely, especially when they both won the national championship.
Yeah, the strength coach. It is an important position, man. I mean, I was had Mike Gittleson, a great one, and that position has evolved to being even. They used the guy big time in recruiting. They were just getting a feel for it in the early stages, but I know Ben Herbert is a big factor in recruiting. They use him. He's a motivator, man. You got to be a motivator to get these kids to do the things you got to do in the off season. I think he's creative. A strength coach has to be creative, and you work as a counselor too. Sometimes you're the middleman between the position coach, the head coach, the court. You're the guy that kids talk to, sometimes as a counselor. But anyway, they hired a young guy. I read this guy's bio, Denny. Listen, don't fool yourself this about Michigan. Don't ever fool yourself about this, because I saw it as a player. Hey, we're Michigan, man. We're going to have great players graduate. We're going to have great coaches leave every year. You know what? There's somebody waiting in the wings. He might be better. So don't panic over here that this kid, this Tress, what's his name?
Justin Tress.
Whatever. I mean, he's been there. He's worked under Big Ben. He'll get his bearings of being the leader and get his get an understanding of how to be the guy to give the message. He's been in the background letting Big Ben give the message. I guarantee you, there's times he was that guy. He'll be fired up. He'll have a great staff with him, and
it's hard with the strength and conditioning coach, but because they're kind of like the leader of the CIA or something. Presidents come and go, but the strength and conditioning coach, stays there. I mean, like his presence has been around for so long, and people, and I know this, and Scar, you've done it yourself. You go back to your playing days and you talk about your strength and conditioning coach. I know I can recall myself. It's over 20 years ago working with Rod Payne, who was a center at Michigan. I worked a couple of years in radio with Rod. Rod thought of Mike Gittleson as a professor, as a teacher, as a father figure, as somebody like he was always calling him and always talking with him. I can't believe I don't know how much and how often he stayed on the phone, Gittleson, with other players, but I was thinking Payne monopolized his time. He was always on the phone with them, and he just would say, he would always say, Gittleson, that guy right there.
Danny, listen, I understand that. I understand that. But at the same time, Mike Gittleson, he had a staff. He had guys. Yeah. Okay. I can give you some names. You don't know. Joe Moschetti, Joe English. He had some Kovacs' old man. He ended up being a guy that worked with Mike Gittleson, Lou Kovac. These were bad dudes, man. Okay. These were some, listen, Ben Herbert's got some bad dudes working under him. And I guarantee you, this guy ain't no lamb chop. He's going to come in swinging. He's going to make his mark. Our players will get adjusted. People got to move on, man. And when they see that this guy's bringing to the table, Sherrone knows what he's bringing to the table. It happens, man. Good programs lose coaches. But I'm glad that he's one of our guys. We stay in the program. It looks like Sherrone wants to do that, promote from within. So I got faith in this kid. I looked at his bio. It looked like he was ready to I saw a little video. Looked like he was ready to take a swing at some Buckeyes. Did you see that video?
I did see that in the tunnel. Yeah.
That's good.
That is good. How about some of the feedback? Antoine's talking about Michigan's got a lot of talent coming in. OT is talking like you. He's talking about the Senior Bowl. What's with the Michigan receivers ripping up the Shrine Bowl or Senior Bowl? Yeah, look, I would say this, OT. I know you guys out there, you guys read, watch, listen to, all the Michigan content that you can, and you absorb it. And everybody's got their own thing. A lot of these podcasts and stuff I noticed last year because people brought it here. They were always like, Michigan doesn't have the receivers. I mean, if I saw, that's all it was. And almost every time I was on here, I had to tell people like, no, Michigan's got really good receivers. Like they've got a really good receiving room. Kojo comes up big in big games. I mean, this wasn't like, but I don't know if they were the rumor podcast. Look, everybody can have their own opinion and everything. I tried telling people that Roman Wilson was a star and that Colston Loveland was a star, but there was the majority, and maybe it is a little bit of a knock on some of these guys who get all of their information from other people, or they're just worried about rumors or anything else. We had it here. The good afternoon Michigan football last year. We told all of you that Michigan didn't have any problem. They were like, Athlons has Roman Wilson as a fifth team a wide receiver in the Big Ten. That's too low. Roman Wilson's a star. He's the fastest guy in college football. So I don't know, like, why are they ripping it up? Because they're really good. That's why.
Yeah, no, we've got some good receivers. We don't throw it as much as others, but Danny, this is another hope of mine. I know I'm getting off subject. This is what I'm hoping. In 1969, Schembechler got the thing going for 20 years. We basically split off and on with the Buckeyes. We dominated Michigan State, won almost 80% of them. Moeller gets the job. We roll. Lloyd Carr gets it. So there's a 40-year period. And I'm hoping that Jim starts it and that 20 years from now, Sherrone is 37. He's our guy. And we are still up and running and rolling and beating the Buckeyes 6 out of 10 times, beating the Spartans 80% of the time, winning. I'm just being realistic. We had a 40-year deal because we had a good, solid foundation that was established by Schembechler. And Moeller didn't break it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Carr didn't break it. But this is what I'm hoping for, man. Here's my take on where I'm at with. I'm just being honest with you. Where I'm at with Sherrone Moore. I'm not optimistic. I'm not pessimistic. I'm going to use a Gary Moeller. I have faith. I'm going to use a Gary Moeller line.
All right.
This is what Coach Moe used to say to us all the time. Okay, what you do says so much. So I'm going to just sit tight. I'm going to look at decisions on coaches. I'm going to watch spring ball. I'm going to get feel for things. But I am very, very. I just that's where I'm at. I'm going to be faithful, and again, I don't really give a darn about how charismatic somebody is in a press conference or some of that stuff. He's just got to keep making great decisions. I like to see some great, maybe a couple good transfers come in. Those are going to be the signs, of bringing the great transfers in and keeping, recruiting some good high school kids. And those will be the signs that will really tell you that we're really rolling.
About this idea, Mark is bringing it up. He's not calling Michigan penny pinchers, but he's talking about the Michigan staff. That is kind of a narrative out there. Mark, I don't know if this is actually true, the amounts that he's putting on here, but he's saying that Michigan, this staff will keep Michigan $100 million cheaper over 10 years. It's not the money, it's the money. So that might just be a reality because Harbaugh, if you believe the $125 million 10-year deal, I do believe that particular number that he was getting. And you look at Sherrone Moore, 5.5, for 5, you can start adding things up. Ben Herbert, whatever they were going to, they have saved a little bit there. But when you do that, there's the idea that, well, Michigan's penny pinching here. How about that?
Danny, I would hope that we blow that up and get back to that $100 million. And you know what that means? That means Sherrone Moore is crushing it after a couple of years. If he's crushing it and he's proven that we're up and running and rolling and doing the things Jim has done, then you give him $10 million. You give him the things that the other guy got. But right now, I understand where he's at and some of these other coaches. But I
need to see Scar. And you're right. In a couple of years, you're going to tear that contract up and give him another one. And I don't know. And this is the tough part of following a legend like Jim Harbaugh. When Jim Harbaugh came in from the pros, there are a lot of people saying, you don't leave the pros to go to college. The pros, this is the top. You don't leave unless you are pushed out. And Harbaugh could have got another job when he was with San Francisco. So he came in, and this was a grand slam hire. I'm like, all right, well, let's see what, Mr. Fancy Pants pro football coach is going to do in the college. Well, he had all kinds of stuff that he was ready to do. He was doing the satellite camps. He was doing signing with the stars. He was looking everywhere. He was always looking for an edge and always trying. Travel the world with the team. A bunch of different stuff in addition to coaching and staff and all of that. That's what I want to see from Sherrone Moore, whether it's recruiting, NIL, how he develops that in, Michigan. Can he also pull Michigan fans and get the money coming into Ann Arbor by going out there and being a spokesman for Michigan football and talking with the sponsors and getting that cash where players, it's about recruiting and it's about like salary caps and free agency now. It's kind of like the pros with everything that's going on here. Is he going to be able to have some of these kind of ideas? And,
hey, listen, I loved,
in addition to being a good coach and CEO and everything else.
I loved Jim, and I love any coach or any leader of any business, any corporation that takes a dysfunctional program, a dysfunctional organization, whether it be a football team or whatever, a business, and you think outside the box. I love those guys. Okay. And Jim was that guy. He's like, look, we got to do some different things to create some enthusiasm for our program. Sherrone may have some ideas. Okay. And we're going to see and see how it plays out and to maybe do some things to raise money. But let's not forget this, Denny, and these are going to come. These will be the signs when the coach is tested. Because I was this guy in high school. It's how are you going to handle one thing we can say about Jim, for the most part, in 9 years, we did not have many off the field issues with our players. You have years where there was guys fighting and getting drunk and doing dumb things. And, we didn't have it, or maybe they kept it out of the media. We had the thing with Mozzie and some things, but that is important. That will be a true test of a leader too. Is he going to have everything unified? There's great work ethic, and we got to out-organize people. We got to be efficient, doing all these things, man. But I still want to look at the off the field stuff, because Jim was, I think, pretty good there. Those things matter, Danny, because you lose players, you guys got guys getting in trouble, you get the media, and then it hurts recruiting. Everything negative hurts recruiting.
Yeah, I don't really agree with that. I think that's a perception. I think that's you're a Michigan man perception. If you got outside of the Michigan bubble and you had somebody that came in here, they would attack that particular argument. They would go back to Harbaugh's first year when he played a felon on his team, his very first year. And you would go through, you mentioned.
Who was that?
I don't know, the wide receiver that pled to a felony from Orchard Lake on his very first team, the guy that he had out there against Utah and wasn't running great routes. So that was from right off the top. And then you would go to the things like, I think any coach would have played Mozzie Smith if they got home cooking with their, the situation.
I get it. There's going to be
that, and they would. They would also go to what happened this year. I don't know if you consider that off the field or not. With what went on with the NCAA.
I'm talking about disciplining. Yeah, I was mainly getting at the way you handle 140 players in over a 9-year period. You're not going to be perfect. You're going to have guys.
But I think you need to let's meet somewhere in the middle there.
I would say it was. I would say it was respectable. I would say it was respectable as a guy who led a high school team with 60 kids on my varsity team. I get it. You got kids who are going to do dumb things.
I agree with that. I agree with you on that.
There's some coaches that I think just do a better job. And listen, I think Jim was better than average, and I think it was respectable the way he did for 9 years, 140 guys, the amount of problems we had. I'll take it, and I want Sherrone to know. I just think those things are important because they're going to bite you. You get guys doing dumb things, man, and then here comes the media.
It can.
They don't forget guys like you 9 years ago. I forgot that one.
Well, I don't know. Like, I think that there's not a lot of difference when it comes down to top 25 teams. It was kind of like with the Mozzie Smith thing. Like, I think any top 25 coach, given the opportunity with some home cooking by their prosecutor who was going to bury it, for a month, I doubt that any of those coaches would have been like, nope, we're undefeated. Let's go ahead and get this out and suspend our guy right now. And let's create, or were they just going to, take the gift that they were given, which was they were going to slow play this all the way till after the Ohio State game? I think all the coaches would have did that. Now, go ahead. You want to give them credit for doing it, or you want to, rail them? I guess it all depends, like if you're a Michigan man or if you're on the outside. I look at it like any coach would have done the same thing that Harbaugh did with Mozzie Smith. So, I know there's a lot of people like, he should have suspended him for the Big Ten championship game, whatever. A lot of these teams, like, when you're undefeated and you're sitting out there and you have an opportunity to do something, these coaches all would have done the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, Danny, I just got some notes here. I'm looking at some things. I know as a guy who took over a little program, it's really a race now. You got Sherrone Moore starting his first year. You've got the guy at Michigan State, his first year at Michigan State. You got Ryan Day over there trying to retool, bringing guys in, and it's like, who's going to do a better job? That's what it comes down. How well you do is dependent on how smart am I and how dumb is the other guy. And I think the assistant coaches, I learned as a high school coach, the most important thing I had to do was recruit a great group of assistant coaches and keep them. Now, it's harder to do in college because guys move on, but he's got to have this staff. He's got to get right. And I'm just I'm fired up about the strength coach. I think it's a good decision. And if we're hearing about Clinksdale, we don't know. We're hearing rumors about Elston. That's not a great thing. We'll see. But again, he might have an opportunity to go to the pros. I don't know what he's doing.
All right. Let's see some of the feedback. Let's look at JS. He's hoping Michigan isn't looking at cost savings. He's not worried about Moore's contract, but if there isn't a heavier investment in NIL, locker room, paying top-notch staff, a drop-off can occur.
Well, Danny, listen, I don't believe that Ward Manuel is going to, start cutting the amount of money to pay assistants. I mean, I can understand not paying Sherrone Moore what Jim was making, but I don't believe the assistants are going to get paid less. And we've done okay bringing guys in with NIL. I don't think it's going to get worse. We brought in 10, 12 this past year that were key guys. We brought guys in the year before that were key guys. I'm not worried about that commitment getting worse. I don't know where that narrative's coming from.
Well, here's, you're right, Scar, to point. When we talk about NIL, people should say last year it was a home run for Michigan. And you mentioned the 10 guys that came in on the transfer portal. But there was always going to be this year, Michigan's approach was reward guys at the back end. And, they won the Natty. So I think we're a contributing factor. And you always want this to win it all. Guys were like, hey, I'm done. So could they have kept some more guys? That's where I came to Sherrone Moore. Can he unify the Michigan fan base, any Michigan donors, anybody that's watching this, and can he raise that money? And then can Michigan have this big pool of money, and can players look at it and realize that they can come in Michigan, and if they're not necessarily going to get paid at the front end, like a lot of teams seem to be promising the money, can they relay that to the players and get the players? That's something that we have to keep an eye on.
Well, that's going to be, listen, I believe he's going to have all the kind of resources and funding NIL-wise that Jim had. So I don't, if anything, it's going to be better. But it's going to come, and this will be one of the tests of him as a leader. Jim did a great job identifying. First, you got to identify. You got to have an eye for talent. Big Ulu, Josiah Stewart, Jim, you got to have an eye for talent.
Great point.
Whether it was mentor, who the hell knows who, you got to have an eye for talent. Jimmy Johnson. And then you got to know how to talk to that kid to bring him in. Now, I don't have any doubt there. Sherrone Moore recruited Dax Hill out of Oklahoma. You know, he was the key guy with J.J. McCarthy. So Jim saw that. And that was the only recommendation more than anything that old Scar cared about was when Jim Harbaugh put his stamp on Sherrone Moore. So that was the greatest thing that has me sleeping at night. I don't really care about what any of these guys in the media are saying, but he's got to be able to sell. He's got to be identify the great transfers and then sell them and recruit the hell out of them and bring them in here. So,
correct. I'm with you on that. Just one thing, like this is one of those things that people like to, you know, whether it's come after me or talk about, you know, if the OT was telling me I'm talking about any off the field problems, and he's bringing up, you know, Georgia. Yeah, I mean, Georgia had, you know, I think led the nation in incidents. So yeah, you know, Michigan is, you know, pristine when it comes down to Georgia. There's probably a few more, you know, track records you could put up against Michigan in the last 9 years and say, damn. But, you know, I'm just trying to balance it out a little bit, OT. Like, and I don't know, people don't want to hear anything negative about.
No, Danny, listen, nobody's perfect in that. And I just think 140 guys over 9 years, you take 140 just general Michigan students, you know, compared to the 140 players, you know, who's getting in trouble. I think we did good there. It's important as a coach. You got to be good in that area, though. You know, you got to be.
You do have to do. That's
let me just say this too about something that I think is irrelevant. Former players are irrelevant, Danny. I got it on my notes here.
What do you mean?
We're irrelevant in terms of how successful a coach is at Michigan. Okay, because I heard that in the past about different coaches. You know, the former. Let me tell you, I ain't called no play. I'm not recruiting players. I'm not devising scheme. I'm just a guy cheering like the rest of us, man. Now, so there's some guys in the media that have attacked coaches that I didn't really agree with so much. But my point is, we are irrelevant. There's some guys that want to think they are. I don't think that it affects how successful this coach is compared to the next coach or anybody else.
Yeah, I hear you on that, Scar, and then yet I go back to 2021, and if you look at the staff of 2020, what did Michigan have? One Michigan man, of course, Harbaugh, but then they started hiring Mike Hart, Ron Bellamy, Mike.
Well, that's not what I'm talking about. You're talking about coaches.
What are you talking about?
Okay, I'm talking about guys that aren't involved with the program. Guys that just old retired dudes like me and the hundreds of other former. Listen.
What do you mean they're irrelevant? Their opinions are
irrelevant?
Yeah,
my opinion. The opinions are irrelevant in terms of, you know, they got to get the support. You got to get the support of the former players. I think that's just irrelevant. Now, listen, Michael Hart's a hell of a coach, and he just happened to have gone to Michigan, and I think it's. You know, Elston's a hell of a coach, happened to have gone to Michigan. Bellamy, you know, those guys. I think, and I've said this, I think it helps in recruiting when you have a great coach who can do all the things a coach needs to do, but also played there. And I think Jim maximized that because it helps in recruiting. I covered that because I remember when I got recruited at Michigan State, the guy played there. He was recruiting me. You know, it has a little more impact, I think. So, Jim, but I'm talking about old washed up dudes like me who I'm not doing nothing but watching the game like you, man.
So are you saying like, all right, so the point that they brought it, that Harbaugh did bring an influx of Michigan men in after 2020. That was nice and it worked. The fans loved it, certainly. But you're talking about like there were a lot of players. And this happened in the early years in the Harbaugh era. They wanted a pass to the sideline. And then Harbaugh was like shutting that down they were like, hey, what about the former players? We're out here at our tailgates and we got displaced when and we got pushed to this other lot. How come? What about the former? That kind of stuff, right? What about the cornbread and chili?
Listen, I understand. Listen, there were a couple of things that Jim did that for players, which is fine. But my point is, man, I just don't think it's, because I heard it about Rich Rod, the former players or this or that, man, I'm not, It's irrelevant, man. I'm not coming up with a scheme on defense. I'm not telling you who to recruit. I'm not telling you. I'm nothing. I'm no more than Big D 50. I'm a guy watching, man.
Maybe a little bit, but I'd give you this, Scar, because you brought up Rich Rod. Now remember, like, I do think that, like, most, if not all, of former Michigan players, they're all behind Sherrone Moore. They like Sherrone Moore. They want him to succeed. What happened with Lloyd Carr, after he lost to Appalachian State and Oregon, he was getting pushed out. So he couldn't handpick his successor. Right. And Lloyd Carr, as much as I like him, he did not bridge any kind of gap.
Then let me tell you something. I was at a former players.
No. Okay, go ahead.
I was at when Rich Rod got hired.
Yeah.
Within, I don't know, a month or so, they had a former player deal.
Yeah.
And there was hundreds of us there. I was there.
Golf course? Were you over at the golf course?
No, it was at the stadium.
Okay.
And it was a nice deal. They had a spread, they had beer, they had the hookup. And Rich Rod was there. And let me tell you, every guy in that room was fired up, just like we are right now. We got faith. We're optimistically, we have faith. You got to show us, man. So everybody I shook his hand and I was fired up, and here we go. And, you got to win though, man. You got to win. So there was, the people were there in his corner, cheering him on, and everybody shook his hand. And, but you got to win, man. That's my point.
Okay. I would like to have seen a roll call of all the players there, and after that day when they wanted a pass to the sideline, or they wanted something else, or they started talking to Lloyd Carr, or they started talking with themselves, and everybody, there did not seem to be that support for the former players. And that's nice what you're talking about.
What the hell does that mean? And what's that got to do with winning or losing? What does that mean? I'm just pissed off that you're the coach. I can't do anything about it. I'm not. Listen, I watched that guy coach, and there was many times I was upset and disgusted, but I can't do nothing about it. I'm like no one different than anybody watching Michigan on TV. So my point is, I've heard that excuse and that argument, and it's irrelevant. Okay, I was a guy that took over a little program in high school, and there were some guys that, whatever, man. If you win, they don't care. They love you. They don't care. As long as you win,
I think it's true. I don't think that there was, and I know you just said that they had the party and everything, but one thing that Michigan does have, they do have a great alumni and a real connection with the former players and their connection with Michigan football, and how they feel and support the coach, what they're saying to, the masses, whether they go on radio, or they're, talking with other high school coaches. Rich Rod, it was the one thing that hurt him out of the gate. Now recruiting and
what hurt him out of the gate?
Let me just tell you how it hurt.
Getting his ass kicked hurt him.
Not getting Terrell Pryor was
that's on him
with that. But I was also at something in the first month that Rodriguez had the job, or maybe it was a football thing. Greasy was there, Hutchinson was there, and it was out back at the golf course. And I stood there with a microphone, and it might have been me, it might have been somebody else. Asked him about the Ohio State rivalry, and Rich Rod said, "Rivalries? I've been in the backyard brawl, West Virginia. I know all about rivalries." Now, people didn't want to hear that. People didn't want to hear that. He knows all about rivalries, and sure, he had no experience with the Ohio State rivalry. But if I would have had him off to the side, I'd say, "Hey, coach, say that this is one of the great rivalries in all of sports, and you can't wait to participate in, because that's what Michigan fans are all about, this Ohio State rivalry." He turned off so many Michigan fans right out of the gate. Now, you're right. Now, winning could have cured all that. But the thing was, he wasn't a good fit. He wasn't a good fit with the former players. They didn't like him. And because he didn't embrace everybody, even though he did have that big party over there. And the former players, the ones that I talked with, would tell you, like, I don't know, Rodriguez. And then there was the Carr faction. Now, maybe you don't feel like you were involved with the Carr faction, but many of the former Carr players, they didn't feel like there was any kind of olive branch out to them continuing on. They were pushed aside, couldn't get into the game, couldn't get tickets, couldn't get this, couldn't get over to the golf course, displaced. I mean, all of that. There's a lot of drama that goes on.
I get that.
Outside of a football thing that you want everybody, like a place like Michigan, you want everybody like rowing the same way, in the same direction and everything. And Rodriguez did a lot of things, even before he started losing ball games, that had people saying that.
Denny, I disagree, because I think if he was winning, all that stuff would have been irrelevant. You know, when you can't play defense and people are hammering you with that 3-3-5, no. So anyway,
Let me tell you one more thing about that, Scar. I want to say one more thing. This guy's passed away, but he was it was a great restaurant owner and a great Michigan supporter. Well, I don't know if he dropped off a whatever kind of bouquet or a gift basket or anything else for Rodriguez. A lot of what a coach has to do is kind of like being a president. You got to go out there, you got to shake a lot of hands, and you got to kiss a lot of babies.
I understand. This
was like one of the biggest Michigan supporters of all the time. Rodriguez, I don't even know if he sent him a card. He certainly didn't go over there and have, how about going to, some of these places, and he didn't do those kind of things.
It's all part of being a head coach.
Right.
I understand it.
All right, but you're right. Ultimately, if Rodriguez would have come in there, he could have wore cowboy boots and wore pink and white dresses out there. If he would have won, people would have got behind him. So your point about that is correct.
Sherrone, just win, baby. Everybody will love it. Let me just finish up on Harbaugh, Coach Danny, because I got it. Let me just, because a lot of people have some thoughts. I think that Jim Harbaugh, this is Scar's thoughts. I'm going to say it one last time and be done with Harbaugh.
Okay, Harbaugh, here we go. Jim Harbaugh.
I think there was a pull to the NFL. We all have a job we're in. We may have a pull to go to a different job. We've all experienced it. So, yes, obviously, there was a pull to go and coach in the NFL and win the NFL. Now, Scar believes that the investigation, the way Partridge was handled, the way the Regents offer him a contract when he's on the plane going to San Diego, that tells me what kind of people he was working for. That is a political scumbag move, if you ask me. He's been asking to get this contract.
Well, tell me, I didn't know. This is just what you know, that the Regents called him on the plane?
Isn't that what is reported, that he got an offer as he was getting on the plane or something, that the language has changed? Isn't that what's being made public?
Oh, the last ditched effort to try to keep him?
That it was sitting there for a couple months, that what he needed to get done to get squared away and get the pull back to Ann Arbor instead of the push. So I believe
that was reported on one side. On the other side, like the Regents and the athletic department, it was like every time they wanted to change something up, Harbaugh was like, okay, but what about this? And the one thing he never wanted to change is he never wanted to change the NFL buyout, and he never wanted to have anything in place before mid-February. Those two things told you everything that you needed. He was always coming back with another sweetener. He always was coming back over the top with one more thing.
Because there's people he didn't trust, Danny.
A brilliant move. He was playing both sides.
That's what happens when you got people you don't trust. That's what happens when you got people you don't trust. The way they handle Partridge, the way they give him that last-minute offer to save face. That tells you everything you know about those people. Okay, that's our Regents. He was trying to get it. Now listen, there's two sides to that story. Okay,
that's right. Two sides to the story.
But he did ask for the triumvirate. He didn't do that to waste time. He didn't trust some people, one guy making decisions. So the point old Scar's making, I'm going to put it to rest, is that there was a pull for the NFL, but there wasn't the pull to stay in Ann Arbor as strong as it could have been, and there was somewhat of a push. So I don't want to be around. And I'm going to tell you right now what Scar is concerned with. I'm hoping that push didn't infiltrate Ben Herbert's decision. Okay? I'm hoping that push didn't infiltrate Jesse Minter's decision. And I'm hoping that push is not infiltrating, because what we're hearing about Mike Elston. So I don't know. Okay? But it's what I believe as far as Jim. There was not the pull that was that we all maybe have heard. Now, what he said in his press conference anybody with a clue would have said the same thing. I love Michigan. They're great, and everybody's great, and all this. Okay, you're not going to come in there and start, attacking some of those people that you didn't have faith in. But I've said it. I'm done with it. I'm moving on to Sherrone Moore. I got faith in the big fella, and that's my final thought on Harbaugh.
Well, just the final thought, but let me follow up on a couple of those things. So all of that, so you think that he really did want to stay with Michigan, but the push was there.
Possibly a little bit.
So why 2 years ago when he went to Minnesota and that fell apart, he said he was never going to do it again. And the very next year he was talking.
Things changed. He saw how dishonest some people were. He saw the way Partridge was handled. Listen, this
was before Partridge. This was the Vikings 2 years ago. Why did he lie? Why did he lie?
He said he was all done with it after last year, right?
2 years ago, yeah.
Okay, well, people change. Leadership changes. Your trust factor changes with people you work for. Your outlook changes. If they're no good, well, maybe we got to take another peek. So that's just where I'm.
I'll give you my final word on it, Scar. Jim Harbaugh is the greatest Michigan football coach that I've ever seen. And these last 3 years were the greatest years in college football over profile. I like all sports, but college football is number one and Michigan's number one. And he just went through 3 years of having Michigan number one. There was really nothing like it. But 4 years ago, when he told a reporter that was talking about, what about going to the pros or anything? He said, follow me and follow my actions and what's happening. Well, that's what I did. And that's what I do. Yeah. And, Harbaugh looked just like any other coach when he was out there running around and saying I'm done. And then the very next year, even though people said, well, he was doing that for his assistants.
Did you follow the actions of the administrators? Did you follow the actions of the regents and how that relationship may have changed? Okay, that affects your status for all of us working anywhere. All of us working stiffs. You got a great job. You got a great situation. And that good boss you had leaves and some other guy comes in and things change. Your outlook changes.
I would say that he did a poor job in saying anything about his situation if he didn't like how the president or the athletic director or any of the regents were dealing with him.
Well,
he did
I think he did the right thing by not attacking Michigan. Leave on a high note. I would have did the same thing. Everybody's great. I love Michigan. I'll always love Michigan. Ward's great. The regents are great. I love them all. That's what he did. Good luck.
Yeah, behind the scenes, his networkers all like, this guy's a clown.
Well, network.
Against me.
Network. Do the regents have a network?
Yeah.
Okay. So what network you want to believe? Scar is just giving his side of the story.
Right.
Everybody's got their agenda, and everybody's got their people out there. And just like you, I talk to people too. And
perfect.
It is what it is, Denny. Listen, man, we've been going. I think we're fired up. Sherrone, I love you, brother. We're all hoping for you. We got faith in you. And you just get the coaches situated. That's the number one advice from old Scar. He knows it. Got to get that D coordinator.
Well, it's the great thing, Scar. At the end of the day, I think you and I and everybody watching, we're all on the same page. We all loved Harbaugh. The guy did just a fabulous job. And we're all behind 100% Sherrone Moore. So, the devil in the details talking about some of it and, what happened and everything else. But at the end here, we're both we want the same thing. And we look at the end of the line, the same thing with Harbaugh, right, with Sherrone Moore. So
I like the decision with the big offensive line coach. I like the decision with the strength coach. And if I hear Clinksdale, I'm going to like that decision too. I like to hear that Elston's staying. Danny, I'm over and out, man.
Well, let's hear you give your sign off, Scar.
Go blue, baby.
That's what that's all I was waiting for. Smash that 5-star feedback. Smash the like button, as Sherrone Moore says. Smash. See you, Scar.